A very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second edition of Digipub Week, powered by Akamai Technologies. Digipub Week is the online chapter of our Digipub World Convention, India's first ever dedicated to online publishers. We've been holding this since 2017. Before we begin, I would like to thank our sponsors, presenting partner Akamai Technology, and associate partners and Beyond Media and Z Digital. Can we please have the AV? Thank you. Moving on to today's session, today's topic is shift to pay challenges and opportunities. On the panel, we have Deepa Parekh, Head of Solution Engineering at Akamai India, Durga Raghunath, Digital Head at Times Internet, Puneet Jain, CEO HT Digital, and Sanjay Sindhwani, CEO Digital at the Indian Express. Welcome everyone. Now introducing you to the moderator of the session, Shrikant Khandekar, Curator of Digipub World and co-founder and director at AFAX. Before we dive into the session, I request the audience to please stay after the panel discussion as we have an exclusive interview with Mr. Satyan Gujwani, VP at Times Internet, with Ms. Vanita Kohli Khandekar, contributing editor at Business Standard. The session was recorded this morning. Once again, thank you everyone for joining. Over to you, Mr. Khandekar.
Thank you. Thanks, Devashish. Good afternoon, everyone. I have watched digital publishing for more than 20 years. In fact, tomorrow is AFAX's 22nd anniversary. So we've really been around for a very long time.
Wow.
The interesting thing is that, let me tell you about the phases with regard to revenue, the way I see it. In the first phase, the ad rates were not bad at all. The problem was there were no advertisers. Okay. And the reason there were no advertisers is because there weren't any Indians online. In fact, when I was hatching AFAX, I remember there were only 100,000 internet connections in India. Okay. That was 1998, 99. So the thing was the rates were not bad, but there were no advertisers because there were no Indians online. So we all lived by the hope, and especially the B2C websites saying, when more Indians come online, then we'll become profitable. So the whole thing was, let's wait until more Indians come, 1 million, 2 million, 5 million. Okay. And the rates were reasonably steady. But then there came a phase when I think maybe around 2008-10, there was this whole thing of, listen, now a lot of Indians have come, but if enough Indians come, and therefore this whole thing of scalability came, that if I get enough visitors and enough page views, I will earn enough money. The hassle was, there was Google, which had been born in 1998, and Facebook, which was born in 2004, which were gradually, basically, they were getting stronger and stronger. And by the time we got a really large number of Indians online, which was when Jio came on in 2017, the ad rates were under enormous pressure because Google and Facebook basically had captured the game. So it became harder and harder. So the pie had become much, much, much larger, but these two players had taken away a lot of the share. So here we are, and the interesting thing is, so this is my first question to my panelists, which is that I hear, so the conversation around pay has existed for a very long time, But over the past year or year and a half, I hear it far more seriously, being spoken of far more seriously than before. Would each of you like to say why this might be the case? Or in just a couple of sentences, can you tell me why this is the case and how do you see the matter of pay? Durga, would you like to start?
Sure, Srikanth. Delighted to be doing this. And really happy to be talking with these specific panelists because everybody, I think, presents a unique point of view. So I think from where I sit, right, from the Times Internet perspective, I think you're absolutely right about scale, right? In the last, I think, 5 years, scale has really gone through the roof in terms of news as a category maturing for the user. It was always, you had high traffic events. It was we had not established user experiences for daily behavior, right? And I think over the last couple of years, we've successfully done that, especially because applications in the news ecosystem have done very well, right? And here I'm talking about fundamentally the Android ecosystem. And, I think the iOS ecosystem now is also getting a shot in the arm, right? So that has happened. But I think within that scale, right, for something like Times of India, when you have about 300 million users, 200 million of which are pretty loyal, you understand that there is yet another 30 odd million, 25 to 30 odd million who are looking for a slightly different experience, right? Now, this experience is not just the staying informed experience, but they are looking for a deeper, more ritual, and probably more sustained news behavior experience. So you get the opportunity to build something deeper for them. That's number one. Number two, I think what has also happened is, COVID and post-COVID, I think I've seen an enormous interest in a few things that only news can bring to the table, right? One is the true meaning of staying informed. I think that's gotten, again, a big push. Second, the reliance on expertise, right? That you don't want to rely only on social media. You perhaps want to rely on news gatherers. You want to rely on a process, and you want to rely on a newsroom. And three, I think there's been, and we've witnessed all of this, right? Like in what we are currently doing and in other organizations as well. I think there's an enormous ease with payments, right, Srikanth, where today, whether I'm on an mWeb experience, a desktop experience, an Android, iOS, it is just so easy to pay, right? So I do not think as many times as I did in the past about paying, and I'm already digitally enabled, right? It is unlikely that the news ecosystem is going to get the first use case of payments. But when the first use case of payments is so widely established, it becomes much easier for us to parry, right? And I think the last point I'd like to make is that I think that, when you have a large user base, it's very necessary and profitable to offer the daily reach package to the advertiser, right? But what you can do with subscription is you can offer journalism in its truest form, and that is a necessary opportunity that all of us simply have to explore. And I'll stop there. I'll stop there and let the others.
Puneet, would you like to take it?
Yeah. Thanks.
So could you just give me a sense of the way philosophically, how do you see pay? Because I have a bunch of questions to
Sure. Thanks, Srikanth, for having me here. So I think Durga touched about how, let's say, and you mentioned about how several news platforms in our country have reached scale now. We have these 200 million users, 300 million users coming to our platform every month. For example, at HT, we see 200 million Indians coming to our platform for consuming news every month, right? So we have scale now. And I think what has happened over the last few years, especially I think pandemic accelerated that, is the overall infrastructure of building out subscription first businesses that has panned out, right? And payment, you can say Rails is one of them, as Durga called out, right? And third is the user behavior towards paying for digital content has significantly accelerated in other industries, and all of this, let's say, tailwinds carrying into digital news, you can say, use case as well, right? So the way I see it, I mean, and interestingly at HT, it's been exactly 18 months since we launched our subscription journey, right? There are 3 key learnings, I think, we have taken from the last 18-month journey. I think first and foremost, there is a clear product market fit. I think, I mean, borrowing from the startup world, and I happen to be part of that not so long back.
Right.
There is definitely an audience out there who's willing to pay for credible digital news for the content buckets they are interested in. Right, that's one. Secondly, habit formation is extremely important. So what it means is whether it's user acquisition or whether it's user engagement, whether you are trying to acquire a new reader to pay for your digital news content, or whether it's, let's say, engaging with them subsequently so they renew, right? Habit formation is extremely important to, let's say, growing the overall number of users who would be willing to try out the digital news model. What it means is your content strategy, your paywall strategy, your pricing strategy, and even your platform strategy, whether you want to focus on desktop apps, so on and so forth. So all this will have a huge bearing on how do you want to drive your habit among the users, right?
Okay.
Third is, which is again, I would say a derivative of the overall maturity and growth of the internet and consumer tech society we are living in now, is the product experience. So how the user discover your content, from how they, let's say, how do you nudge them towards buying that content, the entire process and the purchase journey after that, and the subsequent engagement post payment, right? You need to deliver a you can say best in class user experience, product experience, right, with superior UI UX, because your customer is accustomed to, let's say, consuming a Netflix or a Spotify, where they get this best in class user experience. She is not going to bring down the standards or have a different way of looking at how they consume news subscriptions.
Yeah.
So I think these three, I feel, are the key pillars that has come out in our understanding. And yeah, but there's definitely, it's a great progress I think we've seen in last couple of years.
Okay, great. Sanjay?
I think most of the points have been covered. So I'll just pick up from what has already been covered. I think the ecosystem, as Durga mentioned, has fallen into place, whether it's payments, whether it's the audience, the size of the audience out there. So I think that has fallen in place. The second is, I think what we are seeing globally is the proof of concept. So when you look at the NYT, WSJ, and multiple players in Europe, you see that this model works, and it doesn't have to really work on tens and millions of people. Even if you have a very small percentage of your consumers turning into customers, this model works. And I think lastly, the audience is ready in terms of the hesitancy to transact digitally, the willingness to pay for something intangible, like content. So I think all those things, behavioral change is the most difficult to achieve. And what is happening is, because of Netflix, because of lockdown, because of so many factors which have happened in the last 2-3 years, I think all the three pieces, the consumer is ready, the ecosystem is ready, and we have business models which demonstrate to us that it's possible to make it work. It doesn't happen overnight, but once you start the journey, the success is achievable. I think these three things are what are driving a push towards pay.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much, Sanjay. Deepa, on the same subject, what I'd like to ask is, because Akamai is present, in a very large number of countries across the world, the propensity, the willingness to pay, is it something which has been seen more in the West, or have you also seen it elsewhere in, say, Asia or Africa or some other continent as well, or is it only North America mostly?
Sure, Srikanth. Happy to be here. Hi, everyone. It's definitely a trend that we're seeing everywhere, right? It's something that, like Sanjay mentioned, it started off in the European and US countries, but it's something that's going all across Asia as well. And I think one just thing to add on, since I heard Srikanth mention some of the points that came up, right? I think the whole part of what is happening is we're looking at a small targeted audience, but they're also at getting very personalized, curated content. So that's something that we're seeing, that how do you marry technology and start giving them more content that is curated and personalized to them, whether it is hyperlocal content or ads that are in a regional language, things like that. How do you marry these and personalize that experience for the user?
Okay, Thanks. That's I was actually going to come to personalization later. So actually, okay, now the floor is open. Please, anyone can choose to answer the question. So the one question which I'm very curious about is that all along, all your websites and everybody has gone the advertising way. So we have a certain point of view, a certain kind of content that we put up. Whether it's a business site, a news site, you want more people, you want to be discovered through Google, right, and Facebook, and whichever else social media there is. You want numbers, right? But when you say you want to go pay, and I understand nobody does it overnight, and which is the advertising model. But when you say you also want to explore pay or go that way, is there a conflict in the way? I mean, the very being of the organization, is it like torn into two different ways of doing? Even look at the people who produce content. They are supposed to, if you go the advertising way, you want them to come up with the stories quickly. They have to be catchy headlines, etc. But when you're appealing to somebody who's going to pay $1,000, it's a little different thing. So please, I know I've asked a lot of questions. So please, anybody can take it.
Great question. I think that, and I'm sure all three of us think about this all the time, right? But I think, for me, the big difference is today, we want as many users as possible, Srikanth. There's no question about that, right? We don't want to be we're all thinking like platforms, right? And we want to, like Facebook and like a lot of social media wants your top of the funnel too. All of us want top of the funnel too, right? So we will never compromise on speed. We will never compromise on recency. A lot of those clear first principles of publishing, right, for the internet and digital publishing. But I think where we are thinking differently is how are we going to speak to our users once they come onto our platform, right? And I think we've all done a lot of work in getting the user to explore more and more stories, discover right kinds of experiences, and so on, right? So I think while the top of the funnel is very useful in still and here I'd like to make the distinction that digital advertising also is in a very interesting inflection point, right? We're all finally performing for digital advertisers, and we are making a lot of our P&L almost on a monthly basis is supported by digital advertising. Subscribers, when it gets amortized over 12 months, cannot run your P&L, right? I think we have to be very clear about that. So that eventuality is 3 years away for most of us, right? So digital advertising is what pays.
Sorry. Could you repeat that? 3 years away. What is 3 years away?
So today, we have at TOI Plus, right, about 100,000 TOI Plus user, right, which is a first but substantial step for us, right? Now, when you get to 10 million, what is the economics of that versus running a 300 million ad platform, right, where today we are able to offer 30 million daily reach on a daily basis? Now that's a different ballgame altogether, right? So the only way I can run a digital operation today is relying on advertising. I cannot rely on subscription, but it is a very, very necessary part of the portfolio. So we think of, at least in Times Internet, subscription as a necessary startup part of our portfolio and advertising as the mature business, right? And the way we staff, think about product, tech, culture, everything is, I won't say chalk and cheese, but there is a lot of difference between the two. And, like in the old days, you nurtured digital, right? When you had legacy businesses like TV and print, you nurtured digital as the new baby in the block. Right. Today, we are nurturing subscription.
But that's an interesting way of looking at it, as two as a mature business and as a younger business. So one of the things is, Puneet, Sanjay, you could respond to what does it mean in terms of change to so one part is the content part, like Durga's point is this: we have to get those millions of people, otherwise, unless the funnel is broad at the top, you can't even head towards subscription in a profitable way in the long run. What about the product itself? What does it demand when you move from advertising and underlying subscription? Let's say, I'm not saying move from advertising, but underlying subscription, let's say more emphatically, how do you, what does it mean to the product itself, to the changes in the product itself?
So basically, I mean, if you look at the traditional digital model, we've all been focusing on page views and reach. So, that's where the game started and ended. That, okay, every month, every day, you're looking at your page views because they translate into your inventory and that's how you monetize. What's subscription done to that thought process is you brought in a new element, which goes beyond and says, so you had your page views and reach and engagement, and then now you have loyalty. So you're saying engagement is fine, but how loyal is this engagement? Is it coming from the same set of people coming back to you again and again, or it's a transactional engagement which happens in a session and then that person is off and doesn't come back to you? So I think if you look at the funnel from the top, as Durga mentioned, that top of the funnel is going to be critical. And you have the acquisition piece where you are acquiring new users or getting your existing users to come back. Then there is engagement. Then there is loyalty. Then you convert and then you retain. Right. So you look at the customer journey, it walks through these five steps. There's no conflict between them. It's a funnel starting at the top where you get the acquisition and largest number of your people come in. You engage with them. That piece will largely bring in your advertising dollars. Then from that, a very small percentage will convert. And a very large percentage you should retain, because if you're not retaining, that means there's something flawed in your model. And you can keep trying, the subscription business will never grow big. Okay. So no conflict in the two models, but yes, the way you package your content, the way you give the experience to the two set of users. And one set is a very small subset in terms of subscribers. Okay. When he's paying, I don't need to show him the same number of ads to get the same ARPU from him. I can reduce those number of ads. I know that customer better. I can give more targeted, more relevant ads to him. So ads are not going away anywhere. I think good ads are good content for the customer, right? But I think what we are doing right now as an industry is that we are overwhelming the customer with ads. That was a necessity. I think gradually, as the need to give a better experience sinks in, we will rationalize as the alternate revenue stream helps us support the business through different means. We will have the ability to do it in a more intelligent and smart way. Okay.
Puneet, I think you wanted to add to this, but I want to have one more question on one more layer on top of that, which is that you have a tech background, right? So in terms of tech and security issues, I mean, does it raise a lot of tech and security issues when you go behind a paywall? So in addition to whatever else you may I wanted to say, could you address that?
Sure. So I'll add to Sanjay's point, and then I think I'll pick this also as part of that same response.
Deepa, I'd like you also to add in here on the tech and security. Yeah.
So I think in addition to what Sanjay said, I agree with most of those points. One is, I think the way we look at the subscription business model is very different than the, let's say, the ad fueled or let's say in general the advertisement model. What it means is subscription is sort of a more D2C business, direct to consumer internet business, where you are looking to create a direct relationship with the consumer and they pay directly to you. So it's a very, very different, you can say, mindset. It's a very different, you can say, model, and requires different capabilities, right? So capabilities like being able to digitally engage with your users, being able to reach out to the right cohorts with the right content offering, right? Being able to segment your user data across various buckets and cater to their readership needs and so on and so forth. Right? Even internally attract the right talent, right? For example, we would have certain kind of talent pre-subscription, right? Subscription businesses require a very different sort of talent who have worked in these businesses, right? And with the subscription, again, subscription also, I think the way it should pan out, right? Over a period of time, your renewal income or renewal, let's say, revenue should be far bigger than the acquisition revenue. So that will need a very, very different set of expertise to be able to, let's say, nurture the users and continue those sort of you can say large retention rates. So essentially, very new capabilities require different investments and different way of approach from, let's say, media business like us. That's I think one larger change I definitely see. And so you mentioned about the tech and the security part of it. See, definitely what happens is one, to be able to build out a D2C business, one, obviously you need a large technological investments. You need you need both specific skills in tech and product, and you need, let's say, being able to go deep in them. Very similar to, let's say, how your startup world operates, who have large app users, so on and so forth. Right. And of course, subscription probably will give you access to a larger user data. So hence the overall responsibility you have to, let's say, maintain privacy and maintain user trust, that becomes manifold. And hence your overall, let's say, deployment of security related measures goes only up, and so becomes far more important than earlier.
Okay. Yeah, Deepa?
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, just to build on what Puneet said for security, right? We're looking at not only securing the users that are coming in, their privacy, there's the aspect of also the content that is there, where there is a lot of piracy happening with the content, right? We're talking about premium content here. It should be only accessed behind a paywall. So how do you avoid those kind of circumvention for the paywall? How do you make sure your content is secure? As most of the employees have moved out of your offices and being remote, the idea is how do you even secure all your employees, and when they're working with your internal systems, how do you follow something called a zero trust framework, where everybody is considered an attack vector or hostile, whether internal, external, or an end user, and how do you protect that using a platform like Akamai? So we look at various aspects of security, and this only keeps growing. Whether we're looking at some of the recent malware and ransomware attacks that have happened, or we are looking at other application layer attacks.
Okay, thanks. So I have a question, maybe, again, anyone could answer it, which is that on the path to pay, what role does a mobile app pay for a news organization? Has the role, I get kind of conflicting, I've read and heard conflicting stuff on this. So anybody could take it, please.
So
If I can take that, it's
sure,
one of
sure,
my
please.
favorite one. But I mentioned in my initial introduction about how the platform strategy becomes very important, right? And this is, let's say, overall my learning over last year or so. See, when it comes to overall traffic, the news traffic that we get, and typically the leading publishers we get, right? I mean, a significant part of that comes from, let's say, large platform, big tech platforms like Google and Facebooks of the world, right? And often it's a search-led business and discover-led business, and now let's say Facebook-led business, right? The people just came across, and then they come to your site, right? So and often, let's say that, well, not often, but typically the share of casual users would be higher over there versus, let's say, who are directly coming to your platform. And subscription is a business which is best, let's say, served or best delivered with your most loyal users, right? Which is, we can say, a significantly lesser part of the overall, let's say, a user pyramid we would have, right? Now, our learning has been, so while overall in terms of app may not contribute much in our traffic yet. I mean, over time, probably, hopefully it would, not at this point, at least for HT. But when it comes to subscription, app plays a very, very important role, because your ability, one of course is by design, those who have app versus who don't have app, they're already by default a higher engaged user by definition, by the simply the action of downloading an app, they are more engaged than others. And subsequently, an app allows you to engage and touch with your users multiple times, right, in a much more personalized fashion versus a non-app user. Hence, your ability to extract your app users and convert them towards subscriber, by definition, is far higher than let's say non-app. And hence, app becomes a far more important pillar for the success of subscription business than it would be for, let's say, typically the ad-led business, which is what bulk of our media business still is.
One thing, sorry, please go ahead. You're through?
Fine. Durga, if anything wants, I will love to hear your experience. This is my experience.
Yeah, no, so I think I totally agree with Puneet, and I have one point to add. I think, like, in terms of data, right, like our app user reads about 20 stories per session, right? Like converting that kind of user into the TOI Plus program or an AT Prime program is much simpler for us than converting the casual user that comes on the browser via Google, right? So that's number one. Number two is that, 80% of our conversions is app, right? Whether you, and this is a global number that I'm giving you. So just that the number backs up the intuition. The third, however, is that people who like news but are not loyal to a brand, like let's say a Twitter user, for instance, right, who totally looks at news but uses Twitter or Google News. Those Twitter users, for instance, who come sideways via MWeb, we've seen a lot of transactions happen on MWeb as well, right? So this is not to say that those transactions don't happen, but I would say that when you have a base of over, at least in the TOI and ET case, when you have a substantial app base, converting that app user is a very low hanging fruit, right? And the fact that from a product development perspective, what you can offer on app, right? Like we're able to develop so many different kinds of rich captive experiences. And that can be, progressive web app or regular inbuilt native app features. I think it's very, very rich, Srikanth. I think for that experience point that Puneet talked about earlier, there's so much of whether it's bookmarking, like there's so many features that you can offer in an app that it's hard to do. Not impossible to do, but harder to do on MWeb, right? And because and remember, 90% of our traffic is on mobile, right? I'm others correct me if I'm wrong, but 90% of our traffic globally is on mobile, right? MWeb or app. So therefore, for us, having that app ecosystem, when you're looking at, again, like Sanjay said, if you want your revenue to be today, if it's 80% advertising and 20% everything else, say you want to do 60-40, the 3 years from now, I think app is an absolute must in the board.
Okay. I have a totally different question. Maybe I'll toss this to Deepa, which is, there's been an increasing use of video now on websites or on news sites. Okay, I mean, I think maybe pre-geo news was primarily text, right? It has moved. There's also a small element of podcasting, relatively speaking, but video has become really big. What does that do in terms of? What does that mean in terms of about discoverability or in any other way? What does that mean?
Sure.
The fact that websites use video so much more than before.
Right, Srikanth. So we've seen a lot of the publishers, right? They're obviously diversifying beyond just using one medium to deliver the content, right? So there is gaming coming in, there's short form, long form videos coming in, there's UGC, user generated content coming in. There are different ways that the publishers are using to engage their audience and keep them on. So when we're talking about video, and especially we're seeing the growth of your consumer moving to tier 2, tier 3 cities within India, that's where it becomes really even more important that while they're consuming content on mobile, are you able to give them that experience? Just like we've seen the OTT platforms grow, right, 3 to 4 times over this pandemic, the same way you're going to see this video consumption growing. People are getting a little less patient. They're trying to get more sound bites much quicker. So that's where we see a platform. You need a platform where you're able to give that optimal video experience, no matter where you're connecting from, right? Whether it's your mobile or you're just looking at your actually news channel, you need to give that kind of experience.
Sanjay, Deepa gave a product/tech view of video, but from a business standpoint, has video for news delivered on the promise that I think we kind of expected from it a few years back? Is it a viable thing? Is it something? How do you see it? Has your view on video changed in the last 2-3 years?
So I think I have been struggling with video for a long time to make it a really monetizable medium as far as the news part is concerned.
All right.
At ET, I thought probably it's the genre, because you have people talking numbers and this thing, and it really doesn't need a video format to showcase that kind of content. Long format, I think people just don't have the time and patience to watch. So I thought general news would probably be different. We've been trying. English really hasn't picked up as much as we would have liked it to, but Hindi, we are seeing decent traction. But is it viable? I don't still think we have reached that kind of scale. I think we need to be almost 100x bigger than what we are today, and we've grown 10x over last year. So that's the kind of scale we really need to make video a viable proposition. My own bet is, for us, we are seeing that audio is probably a better bet in my opinion, because the cost of production is much lower, and though monetization doesn't exist today, what I'm realizing is that suddenly there's a lot of screen fatigue that is happening. People just don't want to look at the screen. They want to kind of get content without reading or watching it. And that's where I believe that audio is probably the big opportunity that will open up in the next couple of years. And we are pretty bullish on audio in that sense.
And you're talking about audio for news reporting, not just podcasts in the sense of features.
Podcasts and news reporting both. We've started bulletins now on Jansatta and Indian Express. It's been a few weeks now, couple of weeks. Let's see how it trends out. But we are more bullish on audio than video going forward.
So that's very interesting. Is that also your point of view, Puneet? Or
Actually, yes, I think if I can quickly add to it, video again, I think, though I think at HT we haven't also not significantly invested into it, but we have seen little, let's say, we can say ROI yet to be able to have in a position to invest and double down on it. But on audio, and actually we run one of the largest podcast platform in the country now via HT Smartcast. We have seen a very strong adoption on audio, and it's both, you can say, large podcasts as well as small audio news. And I sort of would agree with Sanjay that over the next couple of years we should see some sort of a larger loyal user base coming out for audio and podcast. And there is some format. So I think this format will have a impact and will positively help, let's say, news publishers like us.
Deepa, this is just a quick question because I think we just 4 minutes left. You touched on the issue of personalization, especially when you move towards pay. Could you just briefly tell us what the point you're making was? Because you could not complete it.
Real quick, I think some of the interesting use cases we are working with some of the large publishers like we have on the panel right now. They're personalizing a lot of content in terms of, one is of course the regional languages, right? There's a lot of consumption happening with different people in different cities. The second part is how do you customize, let's say I have a list of editors' picks. If a subscription user has read 5 of those articles but somehow missed the other 5, how do I start giving them hints to see that, okay, this is what you should be consuming? And these are some experiences that could be customized very close to the user on the edge. Again, keeping in mind the customer experience and the network conditions that we've been talking about.
Okay, thank you so much. I actually, I want to a last statement from each of you. We've just got a couple of minutes, but I want to ask one last question, and then maybe you can weave the answer to my question into your closing remarks. There are about half a dozen questions, but there's one interesting one, at least from my point of view, which is someone has asked that how come newbies like the Quint, the Ken, and the Print are daring to charge anywhere? I mean, they charge what I think, if I remember correctly, it's between $2,000 and $5,000, and this is significantly more than what any of the established publishers are doing. And why is that so? That is the question, but I think we have only a couple of minutes, so I'm going to ask each of you just one question. Please try to see if you can answer that in one line, which is that if we were sitting again, all of us together, 3 years from now, how different would our discussion be? Or would we be discussing the same things? Who'd like to take it?
Sure. So let me answer the second question first, and then I'll try and answer the first question because I don't know what they are thinking. So I think, I'm hoping, right, Srikanth, that we will all be, or rather our vision, right? If I had a time machine and said, okay, 3 years from now, where would we like to see ourselves? I think we will definitely be a wider global product. I think our ambitions are definitely global in the way that we are thinking about the Times of India. We will definitely look at opportunities across subscription and commerce globally. I think that's a big push for us. And we will take global readers very, very seriously, right? We've seen enormous growth in that. So I would say a global product. I think we'll all be much more user first than we currently are. And we'll all be sitting on tech stacks that are far more mature than it currently is, right? So those would be my 3. Okay. And in terms of pricing, I think that, when you're a product which is between that 10 million to 50 million range, right? Or you're literally starting, right? And you have 1 million users, you want to scale to 10 million, advertising will not cut it for you, right? You have to choose a business model that suits your publishing, right? Okay. Today, right, when I have a small newsroom and I want to make it sustainable, right? Like whether it's the Ken, which is very specialized, right? They're saying one story is worth so much, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. I think the model that you take in that like 5 to 15 million users should be very different from, and logically so, than you do for 100 million plus.
Thank you. Thank you. Sanjay, in closing remarks, 3 years later, what will we be discussing, the same issues or different issues?
I think we'll probably have a lot more learning in place 3 years down the line of, how subscription pans out, what works, what doesn't work. On pricing, that's the only experiment I've really done in the last 1.5 years on subscription. And our experience has been that pricing really plays a very key part in, driving people to experiment. And again, as Durga mentioned, it depends on what your end goal is. Are you looking at 50,000 subscribers, or are you looking at 500,000 subscribers, or are you looking at 5 million subscribers? And your pricing strategy is largely going to be governed by that, because you have to see where will that product fit really come at right price point.
Okay, thank you. Puneet?
Yeah, I know we're out of time, so we'll be brief. So I'll add 2 points. One is, I think I'll make probably a bold, better statement that we were discussing how Indian publishers turned the tide and built large subscription businesses. So that would be possibly the topic of this discussion, and we will have a lot more participants in that. And second, this will not be at the cost of advertising revenues or advertising businesses. That will also have its own path, and it will be a significantly more data fuel versus the current model of very largely it is display vanilla and not targeted to audiences.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's how I hope it pans out.
Yeah, good. That's it. Deepak?
To add to Puneet's point, as we make this shift and have maybe not being the second largest consuming number of consumers consuming online digital news, maybe we become even the largest. But along with that, we'll see a big growth in security protections that need to come up at several levels. And I think we've seen media getting attacked more and more globally, and we would love to find ways to make sure our users and data and content is protected well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Audience, thank you very much. I'm so sorry. There are several other questions, but I have not been able to. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I hope we will, in fact, sit together again 3 years later, if not earlier. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye. Bye.